I'm Allie Harris, an artist and creative in Utah. I create illustration artwork and repeating patterns for outdoor rec gear, activewear, and swimwear. Part of my brand mission includes outdoor advocacy and sustainability and climate change advocacy. I will do a video talking more about my brand mission soon, but since outdoor and climate change advocacy are a big part of my brand, I want to take some time to talk about the California wildfires and just wildfires in general. So I've been seeing a lot of chatter about this on threads. A lot of people, especially people who don't live in fire-prone regions, are asking, why does California have so many wildfires? Why doesn't this happen in other hot, dry, arid states? And the answer is that it does. In fact, most of the western United States experiences wildfires pretty regularly. It's also a global thing. This happens outside of the United States. But one reason that you might not hear about fires is population density. If a fire breaks out and it's mostly wilderness area that's burning, you're probably less likely to hear about it because it's not going to be necessarily people's homes burning down. But also, when we live in unprecedented times, it's easy to forget as well. It really hasn't been that long since the Hawaii fire in 2023, or the Australia bushfire in 2020. Those were definitely newsworthy fires. So unless you were living under a rock, I know that you heard about them. You probably just forgot. A lot going on right now. So now I'm just going to give you some general context about wildfires. So first thing, 85% of wildfires are human caused. So fireworks, campfires, cigarette butts, chains dragging on the road, things like that. I learned this today, or at least that number today, from Ashley Goes Hiking. I'm going to link her profile below because she has a lot of great outdoor advocacy info as well. But my degree is actually in history, so I'm going to double check those sources. So this is from the National Park Service website, and as a bonus, they also listed 2 sources as well. The next important fact about wildfires is that is very, very normal and natural, and actually we need them in dry, arid regions. So some of the wildfire benefits are that it clears out all of the decay and makes space for new growth and biodiversity. And then along with that, it clears out the decay faster than if it just was left to decompose on its own, which puts all of those nutrients from the decaying things back into the soil much, much quicker. And then additionally, there are also certain plants and animals who actually have evolved to depend on wildfires. I'm going to go ahead and link that National Park Service article down below as well, because it talks more in detail about the benefits and the plants and animals that depend on wildfires, if you want to go learn more about that. So anyways, wildfires, normal, needed. But what is not normal is the number. So if 85% of the fires that are being started, or wildfires that are being started by humans, that essentially means that we are having 85% more fires than we need to have to get those benefits. Additionally, climate change is actually causing more natural fires. It's hotter and drier. We have more dead, dry fuel, and so not only is it causing more fires, it's causing the fires to burn faster and hotter, which is very bad. So one exception to human starting fires that we do like is controlled burns. So wildlife management services will go in and do controlled burns, which is a practice that was started many, many, many years ago by indigenous people around the globe. So controlled burns provide the same benefits as a natural wildfire, but with the added benefit of helping keep natural or human-caused wildfires from becoming too out of control. So one thing that has hindered controlled burns is colonialism. So as indigenous people had their land stolen from them globally over time, and often their cultural practices wiped out as well. controlled burns were part of that. So a lot of governments put a lot of restrictions around controlled burns. That's something we've dealt with here in Utah. In 2019, there was a huge fire, the Brian Head Fire, if you're familiar, where in the 90s we had a bark beetle infestation. So a lot of our trees died because of these bark beetles. And because there were so many restrictions around controlled burns, they weren't able to come in and clear those areas. So for 30 years, they sat there decaying, becoming more dry and dead. So in 2019, there was a man who submitted an application to get a permit for doing a controlled burn around his property on the Brian Head Mountain. He got denied because it was already too hot, like it was too far into the summer. So he got denied. He tried to do it anyways, got out of control, and thousands of acres were burned. So anyways, what was happening as that fire was burning is the fire would hit these dead trees. It would immediately shoot up to the top because the whole thing has been dead for 30 years. And then, of course, it was windy. And so the fire was spreading through the tops of the trees. So it would shoot up to the top of a dead tree. The wind would blow it to the next tree because it was also dead. It would immediately just light up. And so that was a fire that was way, way, way worse because we had 30 years of decay from, because we had so many restrictions on controlled burns. And obviously, I'm not saying anybody anywhere should be able to do a controlled burn, because this is a case where we saw that a controlled burn got out of control. But the wildlife agencies, they need to be able to manage the land that they are supposed to be managing. So not only do controlled burns help us keep wildfires from getting out of control, and they also add all of these other benefits that we get from just wildfires in general. They also actually help us fight wildfires. So obviously fires tend to happen in areas where we do not have an excess amount of water. So obviously, if we depend solely on using water to put out the fires, then we are not going to have any water for who knows how long, until it's replenished by nature, which we live in a desert, so we don't get that very often. So we do have planes and helicopters that will go dump tanks of water or fire suppressant. However, those are very expensive, so that's also not something that we can solely rely on. So since we can't rely solely on water and fire suppressants, ground crews will go in and do controlled burns around the perimeter of the fire when wind conditions are safe. So they will do a controlled burn, and as the wildfire comes up to the section where they have done the controlled burn, it hits an area that's already been burned, and now there's so much less fuel for the fire. So basically at that point it's not going to keep spreading, and so they're able to allow it to safely burn out. Obviously they have to keep people, crews watching that area and stuff, but and of course it does still use some water, but much less. A little side note that I forgot. Most of this is knowledge that I have from living in a fire-prone region my whole life, but I'm not an expert. Given that the fires burning in California right now are primarily in developed areas, I don't know how much they'll be able to rely on using controlled burns as they fight these fires. And seriously, high winds are so detrimental during a wildfire. Not only is the wind actively spreading the fire at a much faster rate than it would spread otherwise, it can ground aircraft and make conditions too dangerous for ground crews. Saving people and homes will always be the number one priority. However, the first rule of rescue is not adding to the victim list. Anyways, so that is a little bit about wildfires. Please recreate responsibly. Make sure that you are mindful and that you're following the fire regulations in whatever area you are in. Listen to Indigenous people. And let's get to work fighting climate change. Bye.